Episode 1, The House by the River. Sebastian D'Silva made 3 mistakes the day he bought the villa. The first was ignoring the smell. The second was not asking why the real estate agent, Ravi, refused to go upstairs alone. The third was assuming the dark stains on the chapel floor were just water damage. But let's start at the beginning. The house revealed itself like a secret at the end of that overgrown road, 200 meters from the Sal River, where the water runs dark and slow through South Goa. October had just ended, and everything smelled of wet earth and, well, something else. Something sweet and rotten that Sebastian convinced himself was just vegetation decomposing after the monsoons. The villa stood 3 stories tall, yellow paint peeling like dead skin, with windows that watched them approach. Ravi kept his hands tight on the steering wheel even after he'd parked. Here's what Ravi didn't tell Sebastian. The previous owners, the Fernandez family, had left in the middle of the night. Not packed, not planned, fled. Mrs. Fernandez had been found by a neighbor the next morning, sitting in her car at a petrol station 40 kilometers away, still in her nightgown, unable to speak. Her husband had driven straight to the airport with their 2 daughters, left his medical practice, his patients, everything. The neighbor told Ravi this. Ravi told Sebastian they'd moved to Dubai for business. The front door opened with a sound like something exhaling. Inside, the air was different, cooler despite the November heat. Sebastian noticed how Ravi stayed close to the entrance, how he kept glancing at his watch. The house was furnished, which Ravi said was unusual. Unusual was an understatement. There were still plates in the kitchen sink, turned upside down. A calendar on the wall stopped at March 2020. Photographs hung in the hallway. The Fernandez family smiling at a beach, at a wedding, at Christmas. Someone had turned all the photographs to face the wall, every single one. Sebastian asked about it. Ravi said maybe the owners were superstitious. Some people did that when they left a house, but his voice cracked when he said it. The master bedroom was on the 2nd floor. Sebastian climbed the stairs alone because Ravi suddenly remembered he had paperwork in the car. The stairs creaked, but not in the normal way old stairs creak. Each step sounded like it was announcing his presence, like the house was keeping track of where he was. At the top, there was a landing with 4 doors. 3 were open. One, at the end of the hallway, was closed and had a small wooden cross nailed to it upside down. The master bedroom faced the river. Someone had left a crucifix on the wall above where the bed would go, and beneath it, scratched into the plaster in small letters, were words in Konkani that Sebastian couldn't read. The room had a balcony, and when Sebastian stepped out onto it, he saw something that made his throat tight. Down by the river, maybe 50 meters away, there was a small structure, like a shrine or a tomb. Whitewashed walls, a roof that had partially collapsed. And sitting on top of that collapsed roof was a single crow, massive and black, watching him. Just watching, not moving, not making a sound. Sebastian stared at it for a full minute. The crow didn't blink. He took the house. The price was half what it should have been, and Maria was desperate to leave Mumbai. They had 3 children squeezed into 1 bedroom, and the city was, well, suffocating them slowly. This place had space. This place had silence. Sebastian convinced himself that silence was what they needed. The moving day was chaos. Boxes, furniture, the children running wild through empty rooms. By evening, they were exhausted. Maria made dinner in the unfamiliar kitchen, and they sat on the floor of the living room eating, and for a moment, everything felt right. For a moment, Sebastian thought they'd escaped something. That night, at 3:47 a.m., Sebastian knew the exact time because he'd checked his phone. He heard footsteps downstairs, heavy, deliberate footsteps, like someone pacing back and forth. He got up, checked the children. Aaron and Joel were asleep in their room, sprawled across their mattresses. But Eliza's room was freezing, actually freezing like someone had left a window open in winter, except it was November in Goa, and there was no reason for that kind of cold. Eliza was asleep, curled into a tight ball, her breath coming out in small, visible clouds. Sebastian closed her door, went downstairs, turned on every light. The house was empty. The doors were locked from the inside. But in the living room, the dining chairs had been rearranged. They'd left them scattered around randomly, but now they were positioned in a perfect circle, all facing inward, like people had been sitting there having a conversation. Sebastian's hands started shaking. He told himself he'd done it earlier and forgotten, that he was tired, that the move had scrambled his brain. He left the chairs exactly as they were and went back to bed. He didn't tell Maria. But she was already awake, sitting up, staring at the bedroom door. She asked him if he'd heard it too. He said, "Heard what?" She said the footsteps, and then after the footsteps stopped, the sound of someone dragging something heavy across the floor downstairs. Sebastian hadn't heard that part. The next morning, Maria had hung rosary beads everywhere, on their bedpost, on the children's door frames, on the rearview mirror of the car. She didn't explain it, and Sebastian didn't ask. The first week dissolved into unpacking and establishing routines. Sebastian worked from his office on the second floor, took video calls, pretended everything was normal. But he'd started noticing things. His office door, which he always closed, would be open when he came back from lunch. Not just open, wide open, like someone had flung it. The window would be open too, even though he never opened it because of mosquitoes. And there was a smell that came and went, that same sweet, rotting smell from the first day, stronger in some rooms than others, strongest near the locked chapel door. Joel found the chapel key on their 5th day there. It was hanging in the back of a kitchen cupboard, and Joel was so excited, holding it up like treasure. The key was old iron, long and heavy, with designs carved into it. But the designs were strange. Not flowers or geometric patterns, but faces. Tiny faces screaming. Sebastian should have thrown it away, should have told Joel they'd find the right key later, should have made up any excuse. But Joel was already running to the locked door, and Aaron was following, and Sebastian didn't want to be the father who turned everything into fear. The chapel door opened, and the smell hit them like a wall. Not incense, not flowers, something else. Something biological. The room was small and dark, with 4 wooden pews and an altar at the front. The floor was stone, and there were stains on it, dark brown stains that spread out from the base of the altar in patterns that looked almost deliberate, almost like someone had painted them there. The single window was covered with a curtain so thick no light came through. Joel asked why it was so clean. That's what bothered Sebastian too, though he hadn't really said it out loud until Joel pointed it out. The rest of the house had been covered in 4 years of dust and grime. The chapel looked like someone had cleaned it yesterday. The floor was swept. The pews were polished. There were fresh candles in the wall holders, virgin white, never burned. Aaron went straight to the altar. The crucifix there was large, maybe a meter-tall bronze Christ figure with the usual wounds. Except when Aaron got close, he called Sebastian over urgently, his voice tight. The wounds were wet, not corroded, not stained, wet, fresh, dark red liquid, thick as syrup, beading at the nail holes in the bronze hands. Sebastian touched it. His finger came away red. He smelled it. Copper and salt. Blood. He told the boys it was probably rust, probably condensation mixing with old metal corrosion. He heard how hollow his voice sounded. Aaron stared at him like he was lying, because he was lying, and they both knew it. Sebastian ushered them out quickly, locked the door, and pocketed the key. He went to the bathroom and scrubbed his hands until they were raw. Maria found the key in his pocket that evening and lost her composure in a way Sebastian had rarely seen. She told him that room was wrong, that she'd felt it the moment she'd seen it, that under no circumstances were the children to go in there again. She'd gone into the chapel herself earlier, she admitted, and she'd seen something that terrified her. A wooden confessional box in the corner that Sebastian and the boys somehow hadn't noticed. The door to the confessional was closed, but there were scratches on the inside of it, like someone had been locked in and tried to claw their way out. Deep scratches gouged into the wood, with what looked like fingernails still embedded in the grooves. That night, Sebastian heard the singing for the first time. A woman's voice, clear and beautiful and absolutely filled with sorrow, coming from the direction of the locked chapel. A hymn in Portuguese, words he couldn't understand, but that made his chest ache. He followed the sound to the kitchen, to the locked door. The singing was coming from directly behind it. He pressed his ear against the wood and heard not just singing, but other sounds too. Movement, the shuffle of feet, the creak of the pews. Like a service was being conducted in there, like the room was full of people. He unlocked the door with shaking hands and flung it open. The chapel was empty, completely silent. The candles that had been virgin white were now half melted. Wax pooled at their bases, like they'd been burning for hours. The smell was overwhelming now, not just sweet and rotten, but like meat gone bad, like something dead and bloating in summer heat. Sebastian backed out, locked the door, and stood in the kitchen trying to control his breathing. That's when he noticed something he'd missed before. On the inside of the chapel door, scratched at eye level, was a message in English. "Don't let her in." He went to check on the children. Aaron and Joel were asleep, but Eliza's room stopped him cold. She was awake, sitting up in bed, staring at her window. Sebastian asked what was wrong. She turned to look at him with eyes that seemed too old, too aware, and said in a voice barely above a whisper that the lady by the river wanted to come inside, that the lady had been knocking on her window every night since they'd arrived, that the lady was very sad and very, very angry. Sebastian looked at the window. They were on the second floor. There was no balcony outside Eliza's room, no ledge, no way for anyone to knock on that window without a ladder. But there, on the glass, were handprints. Small handprints, like a woman's, pressed against the outside of the window, and they were wet, leaving trails of river water that dripped down the pane. Eliza told him the lady's name was Anna. She told him Anna used to live in this house. She told him Anna was buried wrong, and that's why she couldn't rest. And then Eliza said something that made Sebastian's blood stop. Anna told her that Father Joachim knew what to do, but they had to ask him soon because Anna was getting impatient. Sebastian had never mentioned Father Joachim to his children, had never heard the name before in his life. He asked Eliza how she knew that name. Eliza pointed to her window, to the handprints, and said Anna told her. Anna talked to her every night. Anna had lots of things to say about what happened in this house, about what was buried where, about why the chapel door should stay locked. Sebastian went to the window, looked out at the river, at the whitewashed shrine structure on the far bank. The massive crow was still there, sitting on the collapsed roof, watching their house. It hadn't moved in 5 days. And now, in the moonlight, Sebastian could see that the shrine wasn't empty. There was something inside it, something white and shaped like a person, standing perfectly still. He closed Eliza's curtains and told her to go back to sleep, that everything was fine, that there was no lady. But Eliza smiled sadly and said it didn't matter if he believed her or not, because Anna was already inside the house now. She'd been invited in, Eliza said. Someone had opened the door for her. Sebastian remembered the dining chairs arranged in a circle. He remembered the chapel door that he'd found unlocked this morning, even though he'd secured it the night before. He remembered Maria mentioning that she'd heard someone opening and closing doors while he was in a work meeting, heard it clearly, even though all the children were with her in the kitchen. As Sebastian stood there in his daughter's freezing bedroom, staring at the wet handprints on an impossible window, he finally understood something Ravi had tried to tell him on that first day. When Sebastian had asked why the house was so cheap, Ravi had started to say something, then stopped himself. But now Sebastian remembered his exact words. Some houses don't want to be empty. Some houses need people inside them. You'll see. Sebastian was beginning to see. He just didn't know yet what he was seeing, or why Anna, whoever she was, had been waiting by the river for 4 years, for someone to finally open that door and let her back home. Who is Anna? What did Father Joachim do, or fail to do? And what exactly is inside that confessional box in the chapel, still scratching, still trying to get out? Find out in the next episode at 3 a.m.